Draft season for fantasy baseball is officially here, so let's just get right down to it. A lot of players to consider. I've been going over sleepers, breakouts, etc. But when it comes down to the wire, and you're on the clock. Who are your guys? Like, who are the must-have? I want to come away with a draft with as many of them as possible. Here are mine. I'm going to give you 9 names. No, I'm not going all around the diamond. Different positions, some pitchers, some hitters. But look, these are the players that I consider my guys, right? These are the ones I want to get as much as possible. If I'm waiting on pitcher, which I am, then I want my first pitcher to be a guy I can trust, an ace. And I think Bryce Miller fits that bill. Now, it's actually kind of ironic because I'll just be honest with you, George Kirby would have been my pick here. I mean, I don't often go with an SP in the first few rounds, but if I did, just, the way the draft board falls, whatever. I feel comfortable with Kirby, or at least I did until he got injured. And so, with the injury to Kirby and Garrett Cole, and just even more uncertainty at the position, I'm even more confident that waiting on pitching is the best strategy. And so, a lot of times, I'll wait until I'm in the 80s, 90s, or even 100s to take my first pitcher. But if I have a chance to get Bryce Miller as my ace, I'm doing it. Now, I was all over Bryce Miller last year, and he delivered a great season. Last year, he pitched to a 2.94 ERA and a 0.98 whip. And that's despite the fact that his walk rate climbed just a little bit. It was still really good, 6.4%. But then his whip dropped because he gave up so much fewer hits. And the addition of a new splitter was talked about a lot last preseason. It actually worked pretty well for him. That splitter, one of the best already in the game, a +8 run value, but he was already good even before then. His fastball, his bread and butter. He had objectively one of the best, most effective fastballs throughout the course of the entire season. And again, we're not just talking those 2 pitches. Four-seamer and sinker, plus that splitter, and throw in a slider, a sweeper, a knuckle curve. He has 7 different types of pitches he threw last year, and they were all good. Didn't allow a batting average over 250 on any of those 7 pitches. Tremendous pitch mix, great control, ideal ballpark. I mean, this is the definition of an ace, and so I'm still in on the Mariners staff just as much as I was last year. A little less so Luis Castillo this year, but still. Give me Bryce Miller as my first pitcher every time. Now, most of these names are going to sound familiar, but my guy number 2 is somebody I don't even know if I've really mentioned much this preseason, Wilson Contreras. Now, I've always said this, at least the last couple of years with catcher. I don't need to be one of the first to take a catcher, but I definitely don't want to be the last because there's just such a huge drop off after those first 2 tiers. And even in like tier 2, to some extent tier 1, those guys are far from safe. But as much as I like Yanir Diaz in Houston, I think the safest early catcher pick is Contreras because he's not catching anymore, which is perfect because now he can get his bat in the lineup on a near everyday basis. He'll play some first base, also DH some. So this is the perfect situation. You can get a catcher with great offensive skills and probably one of the highest AB totals among the position. And he was really good last year when he played. Of course, that's the problem why the move was made because he was cut short to basically half a season and 308 at bats, though 15 home runs. He posted a 93rd percentile ex WOBA, and his batting average has consistently stayed in the 260s since going to St. Louis. And you know what? That's pretty good for a catcher. So while I'm not saying I like Contreras better than guys like Adley Rutschman or Diaz or Sal Perez, he's being drafted after all of them, ADP just barely inside the top 100. So this is why I'm calling him one of my guys, because he's kind of right at that sweet spot. Gives you a high floor, a high enough ceiling at a thin position, and his ADP is pretty favorable. And I'll keep saying it, it's always about value. That's why my guy, number 3, Jake Berger. We know the profile here. He is a slugger, right? He's going to go for the fences, and that's fine because he's doing it pretty well. The last 2 years, despite being in pretty much the worst situations imaginable, teams like the Marlins and the White Sox, he has produced. 29 homers last year, 34 the year before, and for a guy with immense power, a decent average, hitting in the 250s. In fact, last 3 seasons, he's hit exactly 250 every year. Just kind of amazing. And as I've said before when talking about Berger, you've got to love the upgrade going to the Rangers as opposed to the Marlins, the ballpark upgrade, the lineup upgrade, everything. And so, again, you stare at a guy like Mark Vientos, who sure is a great power hitter too in a good lineup, but give me the same exact profile with honestly a lot less risk. I think Vientos does have some bust potential, and Berger, I don't really feel that way, and you get him a couple rounds later. Plus, Berger gives you first base and third base eligibility. He's probably going to be the everyday first baseman for them there in Texas. Let's just throw this in there as well. Not that this is a strong consideration on draft day for me, but you just got to like the guy. I mean, look, he just loves the game. You can see he's always out there having fun, and a great story of him and his wife and his child. And, he's just a guy that you kind of feel good having on your team. I know I feel good if I have Pete Crow Armstrong. I've probably already drafted him way too much. Yeah, I'm all in, but I think more people should be. It's always easy to be skeptical of a young player who did struggle at times last season. I mean, let's face it, the first half, he just was not good offensively, but I'm not just narrowing my focus to the recent string of, September, August production. I'm not falling for the recency bias here. I'm not looking at a small sample size. I'm looking at the fact that he struggled early in the season because he's a rookie just trying to get his feet under him, and he has made some adjustments that have already started to pay off. He's been starting to hit breaking balls better, and that included the second half of last season. But in this spring, 519 average with 3 homers and 11 RBIs, and that's in just 27 at bats. I get it, it's spring training, I know, but I'm not just focusing on the small times in which he has succeeded and saying this might be an outlier. I think the outlier was the very early struggle. This guy is a stud, and he's going to be in the lineup every single day because of his elite defense. His glove work and his base running are among the best in the majors already. And talk about that adjustment. This is something I just found out, and they just talked about a couple days ago. He's moved back in the batter's box a little, give him some more time to try to time the pitches that he's seeing. And it has worked. But look, Pete Crow Armstrong has been a stud in the making, and I think it happens right here, right now. All right, now number 5. My next guy, another Mariners pitcher. I've been crazy about Brian Wu since last year as well. Let's throw him in the mix. I've been talking about this elite control. One of the lowest walk rates among all pitchers in the majors last year, just 2.8%. That's how he's able to pull off a 0.90 whip along with a 2.89 ERA. I mean, really the only reason he's being drafted as late as he is, and it's not as late anymore as I would like it, but still, in the 130s, about SP number 40. I mean, it still feels like a bargain to me. And it's because of durability concerns. He did miss some time last year with a couple of injuries, and that is still a minor concern. It's a concern with every pitcher, of course, but Wu last year did have some injuries. Doesn't seem like that's an issue, and it doesn't seem to be bothering him in the spring because so far, in 7 scoreless innings of spring training, 11 strikeouts, 1 walk. I'll keep harping on the fact that not just the great environment for pitchers, and yes, Seattle had the best team ERA of all last year, but it's because they have really good pitchers. It's not just the ballpark or what have you. This is a guy whose location plus rating, part of that Stuff Plus model that Saris has developed, is 108. One of the best. Give me the guy who pounds the strike zone, doesn't hurt himself, and Wu will do that. That takes me to my next guy, another pitcher, Christopher Sanchez. I feel like is getting a little bit underrated these days. And I'll reach for him a little bit more in leagues like our Endgame league that use quality starts instead of wins, which most leagues really should do these days anyways. Let's face it, wins are fluky and always have been. 7th in the National League last year with 17 quality starts. So I already viewed Sanchez as a very high floor starting pitcher that you can roll out any given week and not worry about getting blown up. And then all we've heard is good things this offseason because adding another pitch to the mix, he's up 2 to 3 miles per hour in the spring. And again, results seem pretty positive, not to overreact to spring training, but 12 strikeouts in 7 2/3 innings. Then that last piece, the spring stats, that's just the final piece, right? It's that confirmation that we want to see that what he's doing is working. Now, my guy number 7, well, let's go to the outfield. That position tends to thin out pretty quickly after you get past the surefire draft picks, in the first few rounds. Then you got a lot of question marks, the guys who, potentially are platooning, not sure exactly how long they'll stick in the lineup. I feel pretty good about Garrett Mitchell, who should be not only the starting center fielder for the Brewers, but it looks like he's projected to hit cleanup. And that's a surprise to me. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm a little ambivalent about whether that's good or bad. I thought and hoped that he might hit leadoff. Well, they got a guy named Jackson Churio. I guess they feel good enough about him hitting leadoff. And then they have Christian Yelich. And then they got William Contreras. So they're plugging Mitchell there behind those 3. That's a pretty good spot to get RBIs. Now, will that affect his running, his ability to accumulate stolen bases? Because this is a very speedy guy. We'll see how that plays out, but he will still get at least, I think, 15 to 20 steals. But man, if his counting stats, his RBIs go up, and look, let's face it, with runners on base, this might be good for his batting average as well. So I just feel a little bit better overall about Mitchell now. And Mitchell is one of those players I feel like has been a breakout waiting to happen for the last couple years. Some injuries have slowed him down, but this could be it. And let's back that up with another outfielder going, actually, the very pick after Mitchell, it's Matt Wallner. And ironically, Wallner's a guy, he's a power hitting left handed bat. You'd think he would be hitting cleanup, but they have him hitting leadoff. Now, I don't know if that will stick, but hey, either way, he's going to do what he does. He's going to hit for power. And man, does he look ready to do that just in spring this season. 5 home runs and 13 RBIs in just 13 games. Let me reiterate, I've been talking about Wallner since before the exhibition games even started. This guy who's always had the power. Now he's got the opportunity for not just regular at-bats, but, I mean, forget top half the lineup. Leadoff, maybe, we'll see. But he's definitely going to hit somewhere up there. And especially with Royce Lewis, surprise, surprise, hurt again, they're going to lean on Wallner even more. I know I could keep going, but let's limit it to 9 for here. My guy that I definitely want to try to get as many drafts as possible, Jose Soriano of the Angels. And even though this is the latest pick, this is the one that's not being drafted even in a lot of leagues, this is the one I low-key kind of feel the best about. If you look at the numbers, I mean, he's got elite velocity on the fastball, one of the hardest throwers out there, and that ground ball rate. Again, I cannot get enough of pitchers who don't walk batters and can induce ground balls. Now, his walk rate has been a little bit high the last couple of years, but it's going down. It's getting better, almost league average, and he can punch batters out. We haven't seen the strikeout rate jump up yet, but I think he can get there. I'm not exaggerating when I say I feel like this could be like a Sandy Alcantara in waiting. And the profiles are pretty similar. Guys who throw really hard at the beginning of their career don't necessarily result in a lot of strikeouts right away, but good enough to get results and, again, get batters out in many different ways. Soriano, not on a great team, so again, you have to know to expect not as much in terms of wins, but I really hope you're playing in a quality starts league anyways. Well, there you go. Those are my guys that are must-have this draft season. I suggest you try to come up with at least a couple of them in any of your drafts if possible. Got plenty more advice. If you haven't drafted yet, check out the latest video for more to help you win your fantasy baseball league.